Hello, everybody. Thank you for clicking on my channel. I'm Peter the Book Lover. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about books and movies. I have a great time doing it. Hopefully, you'll be having a good time as well. Today, we're going to be talking about books. We're going to be talking about the books I recently read, and then we're going to talk about the books that I plan on reading next. So, let's get into these books. I've got a lot here. Now, I do this thing called book juggling. I read three different types of books at all time, and this is the way that I've been reading lately. And this is really an interesting way to cover a lot of ground, you know. So I read children's literature, and then I read books, and then I have my like adult read. So let's start off with the children's literature that I recently read. I read this one recently, Who is Betsy Ross? And this is a pretty interesting story. She had a kind of sad life. She's the person that came up with the design of the American flag, the Betsy Ross flag. You probably have heard of it if you're an American. If you're not American, you probably still have heard of it. It's a very big part of history. And she actually had a sad life. She lost 3 husbands in her lifetime, and she had a couple of children that died at a very young age. Now, the thing about her designing the flag, there's no concrete evidence that she actually designed the flag, but it's pretty much, I believe it's a true story that she's the one that came up with the idea of our flag. And I'm glad that we talk about her. She's an interesting person in history. Excuse me. Had a little bit of soda pop today. And then the next one I read was What is the Declaration of Independence? This was written by Thomas Jefferson. This is the letter that we sent to England. America sent to England, so claiming that they wanted to be independent. And Thomas Jefferson sat in a room and wrote this document, and then he had other people look at it, and he had to change it a couple of times. And yeah, this was an interesting book. This had a little bit about the Revolutionary War and the events that led to the Revolutionary War. I believe the Boston Tea Party is mentioned in this book as well. Pretty interesting. Then the next one I read kind of goes together. The U.S. Constitution. The Declaration of Independence was written in January 4th, 1776. We still celebrate that today, although a lot of people that blow off fireworks might not be blowing it off for the reason to celebrate the birth of our country, because that was pretty much the birth of our country. But the birth of our government was started with this document right here, the U.S. Constitution. And this was not written by just one person. This was a bunch of people coming together. And then it also covers the amendments to the Constitution. It needed amendments, and that's like our Second Amendment is the right to carry arms. The First Amendment is our freedom of speech, freedom of religion. And then later on, after the Civil War, we came up with the 13th Amendment that ended slavery. Really interesting book. And this also had stuff that led to the revolution. And this was written in 1788. Pretty interesting book. I'm glad I read it. But then I read this one, Who was Sacagawea? And Sacagawea is an Indian that went with Lewis and Clark during Thomas Jefferson's presidency. And they explored a bunch of unexplored territory. And they had a lot of hazardous adventures going on this quest. The whole time she had this baby with her, and she was a very important part of the exhibition. You know, without her, they probably would not have been able to do as much as they did. She helped communicate with tribes, and yeah, she was a really interesting character. And this book was fantastic. I really loved the description of the Lewis and Clark expedition. It was really wonderful. I'm really glad that I read this, and I definitely plan on reading this one again. Now, the best one that I read there's 5 that I read, and this one is the What Was D-Day? And I recently read I Survived the Battle of D-Day by Lauren Tarshish, and I've read a bunch of books in that series. But this was even more fascinating because it went into all the details, the planning of the planned attack. And there was like 6 different areas to where they invaded at, how they tricked the Nazis into thinking they were going to attack in other places. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of information in this book. This was fantastic, very fascinating, very interesting. I was engaged the whole time in this book, and I'm definitely going to read this one probably many times because this was a really wonderful history book. And these books right here are really, really wonderful. I really, really enjoy these books a lot. So these are the next 5 books that I planned, although I finished this one already, who is Leonardo da Vinci. And Leonardo da Vinci was a famous artist. You probably heard of the Mona Lisa. It's like one of the most famous paintings in the whole world. And it is a really wonderful painting. And it's kind of unique. Now, he left behind this notebook with all these wonderful ideas, and he was a very talented artist, man. And the thing about it is his parents separated when he was young, and he kind of got brought up by his uncle and by other people. So he wasn't raised normally. And there's a lot of things that he did in his lifetime that that didn't succeed because, you know, like he was building this like really big horse statue, and then a war happened and they destroyed it on him. And also Michelangelo is in this book, and yeah, this was really interesting. He had a wonderful life, and yeah, he left behind this notebook, but the notebook kind of got separated, so they don't have a complete notebook. But yeah, some of these designs he had was like an earlier design of the bicycle. He also designed airplanes, but they never came to fruition. And this was back in like the 14th century. He was born, let me see where he was born. He was born April 15th, 1452. So he was born in the 1400s. Pretty interesting stuff. And I've made it through half of this book, who was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And yes, this is another really interesting person. When he was 3 years old, he started to learn how to play a clavichord, I think it was. And his father really inspired him and his sister. But he became more famous as his sister. But his sister was a really excellent musician as well. He started writing symphonies at a really young age. And he met Marie Antoinette when he was really young and she was really young. And he really liked her and he wanted to date her. But she was already engaged to Louis XIV. And yeah, so it was really, really interesting so far. I'm going to get back in this pretty soon. But yeah, I'm halfway through this book. And yeah, this is really interesting. He had a wonderful life. And I really like the movie Amadeus. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but that's a really cool movie in my opinion. Then I'm sticking with the same series. I'm going to be reading Who Were the Beatles? And the Beatles were an amazing band. I'm very familiar with them. There's probably not going to be a lot of information that I didn't know already about this band because I'm a pretty big fan of theirs, man. I love Abbey Road, man. That's an excellent album. The White Album is excellent. Their earlier stuff is really excellent. I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about the Ed Sullivan Show. I really love the movie A Hard Day's Night, so I'm really looking forward to checking this book out. It's going to be a lot of fun, I'm pretty sure. Then I've got this book right here, Who Was Henry Ford? This guy is the guy that came up with mass-produced automobiles. He made the T-model Ford, and that was like one of the best-selling cars of all time because almost everybody had one when he was making these cars, and it was really interesting. I'm really looking forward to learning about this person because he really achieved a lot in his lifetime. I've had a couple Mustangs in my lifetime, and they are excellent cars. Although you've heard the saying, fix or repair daily. there was a lot of fixing and repair on my Mustangs, but I had them used. They weren't new Mustangs. Okay, and the last one that I have planned is who is Walt Disney. Walt Disney is an amazing creator. He's made the Disney Company. He helped design Mickey Mouse. He also Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Bambi, Pinocchio. You know, he was like the leader of the company, and Disney really churned out a lot of really excellent stuff. So I am really looking forward to learning more about Disney, and his amusement parks are fantastic. So now I'm going to talk about what I'm rereading. I always reread a book. That is really helpful for me. A lot of times I will not like a book, but then I reread it. The Great Gatsby was a book that I didn't like the first time. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it. But now that I've read it again, I'm fascinated with that book. That book is amazing. And I enjoyed this the first time. I'm really close to the end. I've got about 3 chapters left. This is The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. And this is a really wonderful book. It's got a part in this book that is absolutely brutal. It is a really intense book at times. And it's a very interesting adventure. You've got these 3 characters. 2 of them are Indians. And then there's this white guy that really lives with these guys. And they're like inseparable. And this guy Hawkeye is a really great character. He's an amazing character. He's a white person that is not an Indian. He has white skin, but he really learned so much from the Indians in his lifetime, and he's a really great character. And this also has a great villain. Magua Lasatil is a really interesting villain. He's in this story quite a bit. There's an interesting part of this book to where they disguise themselves as animals. They get in the animal's skin and then they act like it, and they could make sounds. Yeah, a really interesting story about Indians and about Indian tribes. And this is set during the England and France when they were fighting over America, North America, before it was the United States of America. This was about 1752. The events in this book happened. And yeah, it's really wonderful adventure. It's non-stop adventures. I still got about 3 more chapters to go of this book, but I am really enjoying it a lot. Fantastic. And the next reread that I plan on reading is The Golden Compass. I've read this very recently. I read this like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then I've actually seen the movie to The Golden Compass. And now after watching the movie, I actually want to see it again, because when I was watching the movie, I could swear they kind of jumbled things up, and I want to see if I'm right about that. Plus, this was a really interesting story, and when I read it the first time, I said to myself, this is a book that I probably enjoy the second time because the mystery, because when I'm reading it and things are happening, you're wondering where are they going with things. Now I know where they're going with everything. And there is this, near the end of this book, not near the very end, but pretty close to the end of this book, there's a death match between 2 polar bears. And it's a really excellent part. There's a couple parts of this book that are really intense. Plus, there is a demon, and not an evil demon, but there's a demon which is like a person's soul, but it's in a form that can change characters until you're an adult. When you become an adult, your demon actually clings to one form and it doesn't change anymore. But when you're a child, your demon can change in many different forms, and you can communicate with your demon. And this is Lyra, the main character, and this is York Burrison is the bear, and her demon is Pantalaimon, and it's a really interesting character. I really love that character. because it could be anything. It could be a cute little ferret. It could be a hawk. It could be anything it wants to be. And it's a really interesting story. Philip Pullman is a really interesting author, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading this whole book series. Okay, so then the next book that I've read is this one right here, The Battle Cry of Freedom. I finished this recently, and this is a really, really interesting book. This is about the Civil War. This was written by James McPherson, and this is a little bit over 900, about 900 pages. It's a very long book. Gone with the Wind is like 1,100 pages, but I could finish Gone with the Wind in less time than this, because this has some dry periods, and I have a feeling that you'd be better off if you read a bunch of books about the Civil War first and then got into this, because you wouldn't be a little lost. I was a little lost sometimes because trying to remember if people were from the South or from the North. But yeah, he did a really good job of reminding you where these people came from. And yeah, this was a really interesting book. My favorite parts is when I learned about the ironclads. Ironclads are like primitive, they're primitive battleships. And this is the first design they had. And it was really effective when they came out with this, because they had armor on it, and it really saved everybody on board the ship. And now we have these battleships. They're really huge. And that's where they came up with the idea. So I really like the naval battles in this book. Then there's also the medical advances they made during the Civil War. And that was really interesting. You know, they incorporated a group of people that were designated to be ambulance people, you know what I mean? Before, they would have other people doing the ambulance activities, but during the Civil War, they actually switched it to where a group, all they did was retrieve dead people and injured people. And there, yeah, some of the descriptions about people going on the battlefield after a battle was pretty brutal. Also, there's some racism in this book, and I gotta say, man, is that you're not the smartest person if you are a racist. Most racist people, they're not good people. A lot of people that really are racist, they have other qualities about them that are not good. So being a racist is not something I recommend. You know, do not judge people by the color of their skin. Judge them by their character, and that is the best way to do things. But there's racism in here, and sometimes it's really sad and depressing. Then we got Quantrill's Raiders is another thing that I learned about this. This is a group of people on the southern side. Well, they were kind of going back and forth to sides, but there were a bunch of raiders that really used the war as a chance to do a lot of lawless stuff. And a really interesting group of people. Jesse James was part of this group of people. And yeah, these were a bunch of ruthless people, man. Really, really ruthless people. And there's one other thing that I've learned from this that's not really known from people, but there's a ship called the Saltuna. And this Saltuna is one of the last disasters of the Civil War, but most people haven't heard about it because Abraham's Lincoln assassination is the thing that everybody was paying attention to. And this happened a little bit after Abraham Lincoln got assassinated. And this was a ship that got sunk, and it was a disaster that was pretty much equal to the Titanic. You might even say worse, because this ship actually it was meant for 300 people, and they had like 1,000 people on this ship. And the steam tanks blew up, so the ship caught on fire, and most of the people on board this ship died. It was a really tragic event that's not really known, and it was the last tragedy of the Civil War. Yeah, and it's really interesting. You learn how a lot of details. There's a lot of battles that are described in this book, but you would actually. I read a book about the Battle of Gettysburg in one of the book series of What is the Battle of Gettysburg, And by reading that first, it really helped me understand the Battle of Gettysburg when it was described in this book. But this is a really interesting book on the Civil War. I am definitely planning on reading it again because this was really interesting, especially after I read more books on the Civil War. Really wonderful. Okay, and then the next book that I have planned of reading of my adult literature is Stephen King's The Gunslinger. This is the first book of the Dark Tower series, and I've been wanting to read this for a while. I'm finally going to get around to reading it. Looks pretty interesting. I have the first kind of copies they have. This has got artwork in it, and I have another copy of The Gunslinger that's more modern, but I'm going to be reading this one because it has some artwork in it. You know, it looks really awesome. That's one of my favorite things about Cycle of the Werewolf. It had really wonderful artwork in it. And the last book I'm going to talk about today is another book that I plan on reading. This is by J.R.R. Tolkien, and this is The Children of Hurin. And this is going to be a new adventure. Apparently, this is set before The Hobbit, before The Lord of the Rings. I'm a big fan of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and I'm looking forward to reading this new story to me. Although this is actually before The Ring was even created. And I'm really interested in reading this. This is my other book that I have planned. So that's about it. I want to thank you for coming by. Now, if you like this video, please hit the like button. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you for being here. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you can, hit the subscribe button, and you'll see more videos in the future by me. And yeah, that's about it. I'm Peter the Book Lover. I want to thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.